Am I the a-hole for calling another mom horrible and saying that parents don't get preferences? I 27F have a son 2M. Me and my husband 30M were at the park with him the other day watching him play on the playground. Another mom was there who seemed maybe in her mid-30s with 2 children, a girl who seemed around 7 years old and a boy who was 3. We were watching our kids play when I greeted the other mother and struck up a conversation with her. She asked my son's age and I said he was almost 2. I mentioned that while I loved having infants, I was not a newborn person, and was very happy to have my son be at the age finally where we could color, go to the park, and do all the fun kid things together. She agreed. I told her that it must be nice having the best of both worlds with having a daughter and a son. That was when she said something that made me feel weird about her. She said that if she could, she would have 10 more of her son. She said she enjoyed being a mother to a boy much more because she didn't have to deal with all that emotional stuff and that girls were just so whiny. This was within earshot of her own daughter. She turned to me as if she expected, because I have a son rather than a daughter, I would agree. I was really put off by this comment. I told her that I had a niece who I really loved being around. That girls were a blessing to have. In fact, I hope that I will have the privilege of having a daughter someday. I also mentioned that while my son may be a boy, he is a very emotional child, which is true. He struggles with emotional regulation and we are in OT to address this, lots of tears and tantrums. So even while I have a boy, I still need to be an emotionally present mother and teach him to identify and talk through his big feelings. He still needs snuggles, reassurance, and gentleness even though he is a boy. She seemed slightly put off by this and said, I guess all kids are different. I walked away after that and ignored that mother. I was still fuming over what she'd said and soon after, she left the park with her kids. When I recounted the conversation to my husband, he rolled his eyes and said that people are allowed to have preferences. He seemed to think I overreacted to her comments and shamed her needlessly. I countered that no, parents don't get to have preferences with gender. I pointed out that while I hope to one day have a girl, if that doesn't happen, I would never lament not having a girl in front of my sons. I asked him how he'd feel if I said that I prefer daughters in front of our son when he's old enough to understand, and my husband shrugged and said that would be my preference, and that she has experience raising a girl. So maybe to her it was harder having a girl. I told him that it's wrong, that it was misogynistic and horrible, and that her daughter would internalize her comments. I said that was not a way to raise a healthy, confident child, and he said that I was, once again, overreacting. I was angry at him, but I dropped it after we got home. Am I the a-hole? Are parents allowed to express having a preference as far as gender goes, or is it wrong to say you prefer one gender over another? Edit. I see a lot of people confused by why my toddler is in occupational therapy. He's just about 22 months. He has sensory meltdowns that can last anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. This includes slapping his own head, screaming on the top of his lungs, throwing himself to the floor, clapping repetitively as a stemming behavior. He struggles to go to new places. He has panic attacks in doctor's offices. He only wants me or my husband to hold him or talk to him. Anyone else he is terrified of. He doesn't interact with other kids and will run away if a child his age initiates play. He is speech delayed, in speech therapy, and he is in the process of being evaluated for autism. We've been on a waiting list since 18 months old, all at the referral of his pediatrician who highly suspects that he's on the spectrum. I get kids throw tantrums, but unless you've seen a child in the midst of a sensory meltdown you don't understand what it's like. We have been kicked out of libraries and babies sing-along groups. Doctors have struggled to be able to examine him during routine visits to the point 2 doctors are needed to be able to hold him steady to check his ears or listen to his heart. I'm the only one who can cut his hair or else again, he screams and tries to smack the scissors out of the person's hands trying to give him a haircut. Me and my husband are the only people who he allows to hold him. Every doctor we have ever met has agreed with needing the autism evaluation and occupational therapy to help his behavior. We've seen about 5 over the course of his life. So when I say emotional regulation issues, I don't mean tantrums. Look up the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum because believe it or not they're very different. On top of that, he is generally just a very sensitive little boy. He needs to cuddle next to me to sleep. He always needs to run up to me and get a hug every few minutes when he's playing or doing his therapy. He loves our cat and strokes him gently and loves playing with flowers. He loves bright colors.